what did you plan for your life? I honestly am not sure I had a plan. At least if I identify what the enemy is, then I can put myself in a position to fight it. And we literally timed the phone call so they would get the news at the same time, because if one of them got the news before the other, they would be on the phone and whatever.
Welcome to the Red Couch. On the Red Couch today, my very special guest is Ian DeVere. It's DeVere, is it?
DeVere, yes.
Carrington. And Mr. Carrington is an author, and this is his book, and we are going to talk a lot about this today, but also talk about his life and his journey, the ups and downs, the roadblocks and the roundabouts of life, that sort of stuff. And by way of introduction, I know that your mom is a legendary educator.
Yes.
She's now 104 years old. And still in her garden every day?
Still in her garden every day. We can't keep her out of it.
Well, and please, don't ever try to keep her out of it. I met her at the Brighton Farmers Market some months ago with your famous brother. You say you're the which one in the family?
I'm the secret of the family, the well-kept secret of the family.
So Ian is actually a brother to that great photographer, that Barbadian iconic videographer, photographer, Ronnie Carrington, and everybody in Barbados must know the name Ronnie Carrington. And so, welcome to the Red Couch. Well, today we're going to make you as well known, at least certainly for the duration of this interview, as your famous brother Ronnie Carrington.
Okay.
So today, as we chat with Mr. Carrington, with Ian Carrington, we're going to make him, as I said, much better known. Perhaps at least certainly to the Capital Media audience. I'm going to come around to the book, which is titled An Unexpected Challenge, My Battle with Cancer. It's a fascinating story, which he would share with you. But Ian, I want to go back a little bit more and tell us a little bit about your early life growing up. What was that like growing up here in Barbados, and family life and so on?
Okay. Well, in some ways, I had a unique family life in that my mother taught me. I went to her school. She claims I am the reason she started the school. So one of the...
Is that good or bad?
Well, I'll tell you a little more about that. So my first 6-7 years of school life was at home. Home was a bedroom, and just a few steps down the corridor, I was in school, which was in the living room of the house. So I suppose that is a bit of a unique experience. It has its advantages and disadvantages. I always say that my mom was a little more harsh on me than anybody else.
I would expect that.
Exactly. She expected me to fly the banner of the homestead in front of the others and so on. But you know, it was a unique experience. I enjoyed it, and from there I went on to secondary school, eventually joined the Ministry of Finance and then the Central Bank before I traveled overseas and worked for the IMF.
So, Ronnie, your brother chose photography and the creative side and so on. You chose economics and...
Well, interesting, you know, I tell people I did not choose. I tell people that if you ask me now, what did you plan for your life? I honestly am not sure I had a plan. From HC, I went to Cave Hill. Sorry, I was at community college first. Then I went to Cave Hill. At Cave Hill, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, so I did a degree in public administration, whatever that means. I then ended up working in the Ministry of...
I wonder what it means.
You don't know what it means, but it's probably not anything good. I then worked at the Ministry of Finance, and from the Ministry of Finance, I'd always felt that the central bank is an institution I would like to aspire to. I'd never studied economics, but over a few years, an opportunity came for me to join the central bank in the area of industrial financing. I did that, and that's the rest of my story. But I never at any stage said I wanted to be A, B, or C. I kind of just fumbled my way around, and I would tell people I'm still doing that. I have no plan.
You haven't found your...
I have no plan.
Sweet spot yet. Okay. So, Ian, I came across in your book here a little quotation. Sometimes our fate resembles a fruit tree in winter. Who would think that those branches would turn green again and blossom? but we hope it, we know it.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a very powerful statement and quote, and had great meaning to you. So tell me a little bit about this unexpected challenge that came up. You had gone off to the UK to do an MBA?
Correct. I went off to the UK to study, do an MBA in 1994. So I got there around September 94. And as I reconstructed after the fact, I realized that I had started experiencing symptoms of illness as early as December that year. It was not until May the following year that I realized I was seriously ill and I got a diagnosis. But it was unexpected, as I think serious illness often is. And it started a series of events in my life that really, I suppose, shook my life and the life of my family to the core. All of us, myself, my mother, my wife, my kids, were faced with the prospect that I might not live. And it started the process of determining, identifying what is this challenge I have, getting to understand it, to know it intimately, and then to decide how do I respond to it. But in responding to it, of course, that was occasioned by a lot of trauma for myself, my family, my mother, who was probably about in her late 80s at that time. And she had just lost her husband about 18 months before I was ill. She lost her husband and partner of 46 years. So one of the themes in the book is the trauma not only to the patient, but even more so to the family and the friends.
And you have a family, you have a wife, you have children. So what was that experience like for them? How were they coping when you broke that news to them?
Well, the whole process of breaking the news turned out to be somewhat of a drama, and instigated by myself and Ronnie. That being the case because my younger daughter was due to take the common entrance exam in May that year. This is the same time I realized I was seriously ill. And so my brother and I conspired to keep the news away from my family, because clearly if my daughter knew what was happening, my wife knew, it would have affected both of them as she prepared for the exam. So the process started by actually keeping my illness a mystery and shrouding it for probably almost 2 months. And then the drama of it all, as I said, when I decided to reveal it, I then said to myself, look, I'm thousands of miles away from home. I don't want to tell them I'm ill and how ill I am. So there was a process through which I arranged to call my wife. At the same time, Ronnie was going to call my mother. And we literally timed the phone call so they would get the news at the same time, because if one of them got the news before the other, they would be on the phone and whatever. So it was quite a process and a production. But I broke the news to my wife over the phone when I was actually in a hotel at Heathrow, tell her I'm going to be home the next day. So I wanted to shorten the period between the time she heard the news and the time that I was next to her side.
Tell me a little bit about that whole diagnosis and what emotions you were feeling at that time.
Okay. Well, one of the lessons that I learned and which I have highlighted in the book is that we should listen to our bodies. Our bodies talk to us very clearly. We may not understand the language that the body is using, but our bodies talk to us every day. So my body started to talk to me in December 1994. It talked to me in the form that I started to feel weak. For no reason, I'd be walking along the street and all of a sudden the sense of loss of strength and weakness would overcome me. And then at times I would get fever, I would get cold, I would get chills. But these episodes, would happen sometimes with intervals of about 4 weeks. So I was saying, okay, I'm just under a lot of stress. Maybe I'm studying too hard. Maybe I'm not taking care of myself. Maybe it's my diet. And you find a way to excuse it. But to cut a long story short, the symptoms started simply by me feeling tired, but then they built up to this pain in my back, and then the blood test results came back very abnormal in a number of ways, to the extent where the doctor told me, I don't know what's going on. But eventually you get to where you want to get, and that you find out what's going on, and that happened, I would say, towards the end of May. So it was a period of about 5 months from the time I felt a symptom the first time, not recognizing it to be such, until the time that she told me, yes, this is a malignancy. I had reached a stage after 5 months, my health was going steadily downhill. I didn't know what was wrong, and I reached a stage where I said, you know what, I would prefer bad news, the worst news that you could imagine now, than this continuing stage of not knowing. Because at least if I identify what the enemy is, then I can put myself in a position to fight it.
Did you at any time think that this was the end?
I certainly prepared myself for that outcome. So for example, at 38 years old, I didn't have a will. So one of the first things they did, even before surgery, because I didn't know if I was going to survive the surgery, I went to a lawyer and I drafted a will. So I would say I never felt I was at the end, but I could not, it would have been reckless of me not to include in my planning a scenario in which it was the end.
Got you. So you just mentioned surgery, and that was done where? Here?
That was done here.
Here in Barbados?
Yeah. I was in the UK when I got ill. I came home with the understanding, matter of fact, the surgeon that I was introduced in the UK was ready for me. He said he even wanted me not to come home. She said, I need to deal with this now. But I said, no, I need to go home and spend some time with my family. And the idea was I was going to be here for a few days and then I was going to go back. But my wife, the idea was my wife was going to come and accompany me. But my wife put an argument. She says, listen, if I come up to the UK with you, I don't have any kind of support network at all. I don't know anybody in the UK. If you're in hospital for a long time, I'm going to struggle to take care of you. So she said to me, I think it's better for you to have the surgery here, where you have a wide network of support. Not only you, but I have it as well. And that turned out to be the right decision. You mentioned the support and so on of family, so obviously that was critical for you in terms of your post-operative period, having that family, that support, friends, that kind of stuff and so on. Yes, there were really so many people, persons I work with, my cousins, my siblings, my wife, my children, who all together combined to really support me. As I mentioned, I have a chapter that is focused on that. It's called A Vast Network of Support. And one of the interesting things is, again, this would not have happened in the UK. But because both my mother and my wife and my aunt had been in education all of their lives, there was virtually nowhere in Barbados I could go in the hospital, for argument's sake. A nurse would tell me, but your aunt taught me. Oh, your mom was in the same class with my mom at school and whatnot. And you really see the benefit of living in a small community.
And living well.
And living well, yes. Living well, absolutely, yeah. So that network of support really was a critical aspect of it. And I would say to anyone, never underestimate the power of love and caring that you get from all those persons around you.
Well, thank you very much for being our guest here and sharing what is a very personal and at times intimate battle and story, but one that had a happy ending for you and for your family. And now he's perhaps, if not as well known as his illustrious brother, he's certainly better known than when we started today on the red couch. Ian DeVere Carrington. The book is called An Unexpected Challenge, My Battle with Cancer. Highly recommended. Thank you once again, sir, for being our guest here.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm a Capital Media fan in a big way, so I'm honored to be here.
Thank you very much.